Ever get this feeling like when something seems totally solid, like you'd never think it could move? Well, today we're diving deep into something that challenges that whole idea. The pitch drop experiment. It's been running for almost 100 years. Can you believe that? At the University of Queensland, we've got all these articles here, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride. Basically, they're just watching pitch drip dot super slowly. And just so we're all on the same page, when I say pitch, I don't mean music. Think more like tar, the thick black stuff. Feels solid, right? Not so fast. See, back in 1927, this professor, Thomas Parnell, he was the university's very first physics professor. He wanted to show his students that things aren't always what they seem. So he heats up some pitch, pours it into a funnel, seals it up tight, and then, get this, waits for 3 years just to let that pitch settle. Now that's patience.
It really makes you appreciate the elegance of simplicity, doesn't it? No lasers, no supercomputers, just time and observation. It proves that sometimes the most profound scientific discoveries come from the simplest experiments.
And here's the kicker. The experiment, it's still going, tucked away in a cabinet in the Parnell building at the university. Anyone can just walk in and see it. But get this. This pitch, it's not just thick, it's unbelievably thick. Like, imagine trying to pour honey on a freezing winter day. It barely budges, right? Now, imagine something 230 billion times more viscous than water. That's pitch.
It really puts things in perspective. I mean, at that level of viscosity, we're talking about a snail's pace compared to, well, the entire age of the universe.
And hold on tight, because since Professor Parnell started this whole thing back in 1930, only 9 drops have fallen. That's like 1 drop every 7 to 13 years.
And it hasn't been without its surprises. For instance, they installed air conditioning in the building back in '88, and guess what? The drip rate actually slowed down. Goes to show, even the most carefully controlled experiments, they could be affected by the tiniest changes. It's a reminder we don't always have all the answers.
Speaking of surprises, remember that time back in 2000 when the 8th drop fell? Nobody saw it.
The irony, right? This whole experiment is about slow, predictable change. And yet, even here, there's this element of chance. It's a good reminder, just when we think we've got it all figured out.
Oh, and get this. The experiment actually won an Ig Nobel Prize.
Mm.
You know those awards for research that makes you laugh and then makes you think?
Exactly. They're brilliant, aren't they? And this experiment, it's a perfect example. It reminds us that science can be fun. Engaging it can spark curiosity.
Absolutely. You'd think after almost a century it would be pretty predictable, right? But nope. Back in 2014, they were trying to replace the beaker under the funnel, and the 9th drop almost fell prematurely. The seal had degraded. Can you imagine?
It really drives home the point that even in this quest to understand, the fundamental properties of matter over these incredibly long periods, we're still dealing with the realities of the world. Wear and tear, a simple seal degrading.
Fascinating, isn't it? So we've established this pitch is moving incredibly slowly, but just how slow are we talking about? And what's the big deal? Why should we even care about a slowly dripping blob of pitch? Stick with us, because up next, we're going to unpack what this experiment has actually taught us about the world around us and what it reveals about the very nature of time itself. So we've established this pitch is moving unbelievably slowly. But just how slow are we talking? And what's the big takeaway here? I mean, why should we even care about this slowly dripping blob of pitch?
You've hit the nail on the head. The pitch drop experiment, it's not really about the pitch itself. It's about challenging how we see the world. It's about this fundamental concept in physics, viscosity.
Okay, viscosity. So we're talking about how thick or runny something is.
Exactly. And, we often box things in as either solid or liquid, but it's way more complex than that. Lots of materials, they fall somewhere in between. And how they act can change a lot depending on temperature and, you guessed it, time.
So this pitch, even though it looks solid enough to, hammer a nail into, it's actually flowing, just crazy slow.
Precisely. It really shows us that even things that seem totally unyielding can actually flow if you give them enough time. And understanding this whole viscosity thing, how materials resist flow, it's huge in all sorts of fields.
So it's not just about watching a blob drip. It's about unlocking what's hidden in that slow, steady drip.
Exactly. Think about it. By observing this experiment for this long, we gain these incredible insights into how materials behave over really long periods. Think about glaciers moving across landscapes over centuries, or even how materials used in, say, engineering and construction, how they might change over decades.
Wow, I'm starting to see the big picture. It's really incredible, this experiment. It's a testament to long-term observation, thinking beyond our own human timescale. In a world where everyone wants instant results, this is kind of refreshing. A reminder that some of the most amazing discoveries, they need patience, dedication, a willingness to embrace slow science.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And, there's another really cool aspect to this experiment, anticipation.
Oh, totally. I mean, the whole world's watching that live stream, right? Everyone's wondering when that next drop is going to fall. Any predictions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Even with all we know, it's still impossible to predict the exact moment. Too many factors at play. But that's what's so captivating, right? It's a reminder that even when we chase knowledge, there's still a bit of mystery out there.
For sure, and that makes it even more exciting. It's not just about the next drop either, right? It's like each one that falls, it's another piece of the puzzle. We can learn so much from each one.
Absolutely. Each drop, it's a data point, a marker in this long-term study. It lets researchers analyze all sorts of factors. Remember the air conditioning thing? It all adds to our understanding of how pitch behaves over time.
So it's like a really, really slow-motion detective story where we're putting together these clues from each drop. Okay, I'm hooked. But I have to ask, beyond the science itself, why do you think this has captured everyone's imagination for so long? Why are we all so fascinated by a slowly dripping blob of pitch?
It's a great question. It speaks to something deep within us, I think. Sure, there's the novelty or natural curiosity, but I think it goes deeper. It's a sense of wonder. In a world that's all about speed, the pitch drop experiment, it makes us slow down, appreciate gradual change. It lets us marvel at these mysteries that are still unfolding right in front of us.
Yeah, it really does make you think differently about time.
Exactly. And with that 10th drop expected sometime in the next few decades, well, the world will be watching another chapter in this incredible scientific saga.
And who knows what we'll have learned by then? This has been awesome, but we've talked about the science, the suspense, the history, but there's another layer to this, the human element. Don't go anywhere. Up next, we'll hear about the people who've kept this experiment going for almost 100 years. It's a story about passion, dedication, and a love of scientific inquiry. We've been talking about this amazing experiment, the pitch drop experiment, but I want to talk about the people behind it for a minute, the ones who've kept this thing going for almost a century. It's kind of like a scientific relay race, passing the knowledge down the line.
And it all goes back to Professor Thomas Parnell, the guy with the initial vision. He didn't just want to theorize about this stuff. He wanted to see it in action, to show his students that even the most solid-looking thing can flow if you give it enough time. Talk about a legacy, right?
No kidding. But he wasn't the only one who took care of this experiment, was he?
Definitely not. After Parnell passed away in 1948, the experiment, well, it kind of went unnoticed for a while. It wasn't until the 1970s that John Mainstone, another physicist at the university, brought it back into the spotlight.
That's right, Professor Mainstone, the keeper of the drip. He's famous for this. He even set up that first webcam back in the 90s, hoping to catch a drop on camera.
And then, who could forget that day in 2000 when the 8th drop fell?
Yeah.
But they missed it. Technical glitch, can you believe it? All that waiting.
It really shows you, even with all the technology in the world, sometimes it comes down to luck. Makes you think, did Professor Mainstone ever feel like he was racing against time? Like he was trying to outsmart fate?
Interesting point. Think about it. These caretakers, they dedicated their careers, their lives to this. It really changes how you see time, doesn't it? Their commitment to this incredible experiment. And even after Professor Mainstone passed away in 2013, it went on. Professor Andrew White took over, making sure this experiment keeps going.
It blows my mind, this experiment being passed down through generations of scientists, each one adding their own piece to the story.
It's a team effort, for sure. And it's not just the scientists either. The technicians, the students, even the cleaning staff, they've all played a part in keeping this thing running.
It really shows that science isn't always about the big, flashy discoveries. Sometimes it's about the quiet observation, the slow and steady work, a real dedication to understanding how the universe works.
And maybe most importantly, it's about sharing that sense of wonder, inspiring the next generation to ask questions, to challenge what they think they know, and to never stop exploring.
So next time you're feeling impatient, take a minute to think about this experiment, the pitch drop experiment. It's a good reminder that some things, they just take time. And the journey, that's just as important as the destination.
Absolutely. If we just take the time to watch, to wonder, to really appreciate these slow, steady processes, who knows what we might discover.
That's all for our deep dive into the pitch drop experiment. We hope you learned something new and maybe even changed how you see the world around you.